First, I got to give you a warning that this video is going to contain images that could be disturbing for some viewers. The images fall into the category of body horror. And if that's the kind of thing that's going to bother and upset you, then this video isn't for you, and I recommend you move it on. Hello, Dazzle! Thanks for coming and hanging out with me today. I am glad that you are here. Today, I'm going to be discussing the game Scorn. So Scorn is an atmospheric first-person horror adventure game set in a nightmarish universe of odd forms and somber tapestry. That's how they describe it on Steam. The visual art style of the game is inspired by the works of the visual artists Geiger and Beninsky. I am positive that I am not saying this Polish artist's name correctly, and I don't think that I can do it any better. So I'm just gonna put his name on the screen so that y'all know who I'm talking about. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to say it. So Geiger is best known for being the artist of the Alien franchise and creating the visual for that universe. And Belinsky was a Gothic Baroque horror painter. And if you look at the body of work of these two artists, their influence on Scorn's art style is really readily apparent. So Beninsky's paintings give us these horrific landscapes featuring distorted human forms where the living and the dying are all kind of piled together, and it's difficult to distinguish who's alive and who's dead. And Scorn presents us some really similar visuals within the landscape. So Beninsky also gives us images of these distorted figures in poses that suggest that despite their condition, they still maintain the need for human connection. And Scorn mimics this as well, creating a similar impression of both decay and desperation. So when looking over at Geiger's art, we're presented with biopunk imagery where the lines between human and technology blend so completely that the human flesh just becomes indistinguishable from the machine that it's merging with. And if you just start by looking at the box art image for Scorn, you can readily see that kind of merging of man and machine exists in this world as well. So Geiger had many images of figures using machines and becoming completely integrated with them, and this led to the now iconic imagery of the engineers and their technology use in the Alien franchise. And when you look at Scorn, the devices that you use are pretty similar in nature. They have a similar biomechanical feel as what we see with engineer technology. So all of this influence distills down to the world of Scorn becoming a dystopian biopunk landscape filled with despairing and dying creatures attempting to claw their way to redemption. And unlike most video games that we play, the visual art style was the centerpiece of this game. All the storytelling that happens with the game is told through the visualizations that are presented as we move through the world. Scorn is beautifully rendered, and it doesn't shy away from showing us in full detail the real darkness and horror of this place. This game, I feel, is largely misunderstood by those that I've seen discussing and reviewing it. I think that this is largely due to the design decision to focus on visual storytelling rather than the more traditional character-driven story gameplay that we're used to. There's no dialogue, no voiceovers, no lore nuggets, or really any other kind of story exposition presented in the game. And this means that the only way a person can experience the story of Scorn is to immerse themselves in the world. All of the story, is presented using visuals and plot tropes that were lost on the general audience. The game embraces existentialism and biopunk, but both of these literary genres are rare within the gaming landscape. I personally think that choosing these elements offered an amazingly unique and thought provoking game experience, but I recognize that these genres are not readily accessible to the mainstream gamer. When we approach a genre, we do so with an understanding of the genre's tropes or the figurative and metaphorical use of words and imagery to convey the atmosphere and intention of the story. When you're unfamiliar with a genre, it's much more difficult to understand the tropes being implemented, and this often leads to an inability to understand the story's intention. This is the greatest challenge when entering the world of Scorn. So, biopunk is a subgenre of cyberpunk that focuses on the implications of biotechnology rather than the mechanical cyberware or information technology that is usual focus for cyberpunk. So, biopunk is about synthetic biology. Most often keeping with the dark atmosphere of cyberpunk, biopunk generally examines the dark side of genetic engineering and represents the horrific side of biotechnology. So the characters living within biopunk worlds are generally genetically modified and enhanced. So Scorn presents us with this landscape where the lines between humanity and their machines has become so blurred that there's no distinguishing where one begins and the other ends. It demonstrates the manner in which humanity has become just another resource which can be manipulated, harvested, and consumed like any other. The living creatures in this world are treated no differently than the tools. Existentialism is a form of philosophical inquiry that explores the issue of human existence. This philosophy has given rise to a genre of literature that explores questions related to the meaning, purpose, and the value of human existence. Common concepts in existentialist storytelling include dread and anxiety in the face of an absurd world and free will, as well as authenticity, courage, and virtue. The existentialist crisis is a frequent plot element that centers on the inner conflict, characterized by the impression that life lacks meaning or the feeling confused about one's personal identity or purpose in world. Scorn gives us no purpose and offers us no story or explanation regarding our character. The game challenges the idea that there is universal meaning in our worlds. The character must move forward only because that's all that we're able to do. Combat in the game furthers this feeling of dread and anxiety because we're equipped with weapons that leave us woefully unprepared to face the inhabitants of the landscape. But the world has no compassion and offers no favor over us or anything else. Your survival is never guaranteed, but rather a demonstration of your tenacity and courage. Evoking the art of both Geiger and Beninsky serves to firmly establish the world within the realm of both biopunk and existentialism. The work of these artists is focused on an exploration of what it means to be human and how our drive to modify our bodies shapes who and what we become. Scorn embraces not only the imagery of these artists, but also the thematic tones. The puzzles in the game are merely a uninformed character struggling to figure out how to traverse a foreign landscape. There's little reward for solving them, completing a puzzle means only that you can now move forward in the game. There are no lore drops, no cutscenes, or intense character interactions as payoffs. Since there's no purpose in this existentialist world, there's no reward for completing a necessary task. What you do or don't do isn't important from the perspective of the world that you are exploring. You are meaningless. Your actions are meaningless. So the pace is slow, and that's really a major point of contention for many people playing the game. You're not going anywhere quickly. The character just kind of plods along and is often required to backtrack through areas multiple times to figure out how to move into the next area. With most modern games being focused on high-speed chases and fast action sequences, this pacing is difficult for many gamers to slide into. But the slow pace allows the player the time that they really need to see the world around them, and it further reinforces the sense of helplessness and the feelings of futility that this dying world already generates. For those that are willing to travel at this slow pace and to examine the world that is presented, there is much to be had within this game. It challenges our concept of personal identity and meaning. It presents us with a caution regarding our use of biotechnology and our desire to sculpt our own flesh. And it reminds us that there's no purpose in our lives beyond that which we ourselves give it. Well, that's about it for my rambling today. Thanks for coming and spending some time with me. If you like the video, click on the like button. It really does help. And until we talk again, you guys be sure to take care of yourselves. Bye!